I think most of what's selected on there, like we literally selected Country Fitness Radio for that reason. Like if you look at the shuffle, it says Country Fitness Radio because that's going to play more upbeat music and it'll stay away from I lost my truck, I lost my dog, I lost my girlfriend. But the point being, there are people who, want to listen to Rage Against the Machine. No, I'm just saying, when there's people like last night, I came in, now this morning when I came in, it was 2000s hip hop radio. So someone had gone to the radio when we had said, leave it on today's hits. And when I came in this morning, the radio station that was on was 2000s hip hop. That's clearly somebody's personal preference. Yeah. So, but the point is, I like people to take responsibility. Do the Viper kids, like those kids that age, really like 2000s hip hop? Really? Oh God, that's one of the problems. That's one of the problems with America right there. Okay, we may just have to start over with Kanye West. I will say this up here, might be one of the biggest morons on the face of the earth, and if he wants to come visit. Anyone who compares putting on a concert to fighting in a war is a moron. He's a complete moron. I'm a warrior going out there on the stage like that. You are a moron. You are a complete and utter social moron, and I forbid my children from listening to you. That is what's wrong with America today. But enough of my political opinions. Coordinated programs, middle school, rugby girls. This is my vow to extreme ownership here, even though I haven't sent my review in. Relax, look around, make a call. We have to be able to think when we're looking at the room and saying, am I fucking the whole thing up? Because, the other day, we had rugby girls benching and we had kids TRX rowing in between the benches. We got to look at that and think, okay, that's probably not going to be a real good idea because we've coordinated, I think, pulls and pushes and stuff like that, but there are times where, something, particularly now as we're getting the feel of the way the place is set up, knowing we've got the soccer kids coming in, right, we've got to look around and think, okay, that's not going to work well because I've got 14-year-olds now walking in between. There's not a ton of room in those benches for somebody to do a TRX throw anyway, so I don't think that's the best pairing at any given point in time. But with the younger kids that are doing that, it becomes a really bad idea. They're just stupid. They walk into the end of the bars. They're not as space aware as they should be. So we've got to be able to look at stuff and realize, okay, this is bad setup today. The rugby girls, if we're doing, they're going to do rear foot elevated split squats when everybody else is doing something else. That's a bad idea to have to drag out the split squat stands and put those down in the middle of the room for, one group from 7 to 8. So it's that simple as saying, okay, we're going to do this instead of this, one leg squat instead of split squat. And if they bitch, just tell them, hey, I can't change the whole room for you guys. We've got to make this thing flow, we've got to make it work, we've got to make it go. And again, with anybody that complains, obviously we want to be as sensitive as we can to the complaint, but we also want to realize that, we've got a business to run, we've got people to move through here in the safest, most efficient manner that we can. If they don't understand that, then just say, hey, go talk to Mike or Bob. Go talk to Kevin. Go talk to somebody, get your complaint registered because, again, particularly like rugby girls, I love them because they work their ass off, but they get a great deal to come. And, it's one of those things where if they've got to understand that there's got to be a little bit of compromise that goes on here. So we've got to think about that. Same way, we've got people like busting out the chains for crawls at 6:30. Okay, we got to look at that and make the call. Okay, that's a bad idea. We don't have, we're real space constrained as it is, and all of a sudden we've got crawling chains going on. If you're running that group and you look and think chain crawls, you've got to be able to in your mind and say, bad idea. We're probably not going to do that. What can we put in instead? What core exercise? What can I do to throw in there that's not going to, to screw everybody up? So think about that stuff, and just like I said, relax, look around, figure out, okay, what do I do? Do I cut it up? Do I make it a pair? Do I make it, if it's 4, do I make it a tricep? Do I eliminate it completely? What do I do to make this thing, make the machine keep moving the way that it needs to move? That's not that complicated. This goes back, Ken and I both had the same idea too. For the full-time staff people, you've got to get your interns coaching. Your interns should be coaching every day. They should have people on the platform. Your job now is to step back and coach 4 interns, not try to coach 20 kids. Because, when you look at this, and I say this all the time, I could not run this place by myself. It's absolutely, positively impossible. That's why go coach, go do what you're supposed to do. I'm not going to stand around and try to coach everybody and have you watch me coach. There's no way you can do it in the same way. You are now in that same spot once removed. Which means if you've got 2 interns with you, those 2 interns should be coaching. They should be in front of you. They should be teaching people to Olympic lift. And you've got to realize, my job is to watch them watch them. My job is no longer to coach the 4 kids that are over here. My job is to coach. If I got 2 interns, I want to coach the 2 interns. So can I coach 4 kids here and 2 interns here? Hopefully, yes. Ideally, make sure they're on one assignment. When you think about the simple logistical parts of this to make things move more smoothly. Okay, I'll take this platform, you can have this platform, you can have this platform. I'm right-handed, I'm going to be able to be looking this way. I'm going to have you in the mirror, I'm going to have them in the mirror, I'm going to have my group in front of me. I'm going to be able to coach. If I stand in the middle, and I put 1 intern beside me, I can't do it anymore. Because now I've got to be like this. I've got to try to watch my group, your group, this group. That's not going to work. So think about where you're going to position yourself, how the group is going to be broken up, who I'm going to give who to. Sometimes it may be like, okay, I've got some kids that are really good. All right, I'll give them to somebody who's new. Because they're not going to need a lot of coaching. You can go there and watch those 3 kids clean, and they're going to feel like they get watched. Great. And then hopefully when they go over to do chops or do lifts, I can move over and I can check on those people and make sure they're doing that right too. Okay? And you may have, the one kid, and everybody knows we've got a couple of those 1 kids who just need a coach. Okay. Coach that kid, watch that kid. But think about using, the oversight idea, using your assets. What do I have with me? One of the things that I wrote down is ladders versus platforms. We're slammed out here, and we've got 2 interns standing like this watching ladder. Okay, you probably did ladder during your workout. You probably have a reasonable idea. Again, that's your, if you're supervising, again, if you're looking around and realize, shit, we're busy as hell out here. I should probably send my intern out there to help on the platforms versus have them stand here and watch me coach the ladder. From a movement standpoint, one of us should be able to easily handle 20 kids. No problem. When we get into the weight room on the platform, it gets more and more difficult. So we've got to be thinking about ratios and assets and where people go, not just like, okay, you follow me around the whole time. And, I'm stand here. It's like, no, you'll be much better served. You might spend 4 hours today just coaching kids in the Olympic lifts, and maybe you'll get a lot better at coaching Olympic lifts because you're going to do it for 4 hours. And hopefully when you're doing it, you're getting lots of feedback from whoever it is you're working with, who's saying to you, no, you need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And as the day goes on, by the end of the day, you should be better than when the day starts. Yes? Right. Same, and in actuality, it's the same way we coach the kids. Don't overcoach your interns, don't overcoach the kids. If you got to step in, if something's really wrong and you got to fix it, go fix it. Or you can just walk over to them and say, hey, let's work, let's get elbows up more. Here, when they drive the bar. And that's all you're going to do, and then you can step right back. And you realize that you're giving information to that person who's going to give information to the next person. And that ability for us to trickle that information down, the faster we get these guys working and functioning and doing their jobs, the better it is for everybody involved. That's just the way that it works here. It's the way it will always work here. And we've got to empower these guys. We've got to get these guys coaching faster, better, sooner. So less standing around and more realizing that, okay, my job, suddenly you're the, you're not the offensive line coach, you're the offensive coordinator. And you're walking around and you've got 4 positions to look at versus worrying about your position. Like I said, Olympic lifts versus chops. I mean, it's amazing. Sometimes I'll see somebody over there like coaching the shit out of a chop. And then I'll see some kid like this, clean. If we're thinking about where the possibilities are for things to go wrong, I'd rather have a chop where the kid's got the wrong leg down than, a clean that looks like absolute shit. So again, we've got to figure out where's my energy going to go and what's most important. I was talking to Lenny, I said, it's kind of like triage. Okay, what's the most important thing that I need to do right now? And knowing the difference is really important. There's nothing that's going to be more important than Olympic lifting, just mainly because it's the hardest thing to learn. And it has probably the highest potential for these kids to get hurt. So we've got to be thinking all the time. Even with little things, like one of the kids I corrected yesterday, his clean was great. He was perfect, and then he was dropping the bar right back to his knees every time. And I was like, okay, within 2 weeks, he's going to have short leg. Because you can't take the bar from you. That tug, every time he's got to learn to be here, bring it back to here, bring it back down. It doesn't matter when it's 45, but suddenly it's 95 pounds, he's getting pretty good. But he's continuing to repeat this bad motor pattern. And I think, I'm pretty sure it was Lena that asked me yesterday, he said, are we watching their feet? Are we worried about what their feet do? I said, yes. If that's the worst thing that's going on right now, then we're worried about what their feet are doing. We're worried about everything that we're doing, but again, we're staggering that, we're triaging that, looking and saying, okay, what am I most worried about? Probably what I'm most worried about is that I'm in a good starting position and that I'm in a good receiving position. If I can get a good starting position and a good receiving position, then I may be worried about, okay, I get a feet shoulder width. I may be worried about some other things that are going to be in between, but I've got to be able to figure out what's most important, what's least important, what should I coach. Yeah, so, I mean, exactly, like, you've got to, and it's, I mean, we keep talking all the time about sort of the art of coaching stuff, but it's that ability to look and think, okay, what needs attention right now? What's the most important thing? But as Kevin was saying, saying to somebody, okay, flat back when you pick the bar, flat back when you put the bar on. That's not that hard to say. Give them those reminders. Dropping the bar, okay, drop the bar back to your thigh, then bring it back to your knees. And a quick explanation, like I said, your back's going to be sore. If you keep dropping the bar to here, your back's going to hurt. You look at me like, yeah, I guess that part. So, we've got to look at that and just think about the little things. We've got to be thinking, coach. Don't talk to each other. Don't talk, you really, even at this time, don't talk to the kids a whole lot. It's not a great time out there to be social. We shouldn't be looking around and seeing conversations going on. Everything should be like 5 seconds. Okay? Get your point across, get on to the next thing. Get your point across. If I'm talking to Nicole, I can talk to Nicole. I can say, Nicole, I need you to do this. And I can be looking right there. You don't have to look the person in the eye, particularly, like I was talking about, you got mirrors, you got lots of things going on. You can make a comment to somebody else while you're watching somebody else clean. Because hopefully you can have both things in your head in terms of, I need to tell Nicole that, you need your arms to be long, you need your wrists to be rolled under. But while I'm saying that, I can be looking out there at Derek and watching his set while I'm doing it. We've got to, they always say multitasking is bad. There's no way to do this job without multitasking. I think the more attention deficit disorder you have, and you can probably tell by me, by the way I talk and how fast I talk, the better you are in this environment. If you are a really focused person, you'll probably stuck. Because it's very hard to, I'm way better when there's more to do. I struggle with the personal train. Like when I first started working with one person, I was like, this is horrible. Really, I'm horrible. I like trying to figure out one person, 1 hour, this is awful. I mean, I couldn't do it. I didn't do it until I was 45 years old. And I really, really struggled to do it, to make it work. I do much better when things are busy. Best solution, less weight. You've got to be able to think in terms of percentages all the time. A kid cleaning a 15-pound bar who puts 1 1/4 on and goes up 2.5 pounds adds nearly 20% to the weight of the bar. Okay, you've got to realize that. It's equivalent to a guy who's cleaning 300 going to 360, actually going to about 345, really, if you did the math. And you look at that and think that's absurd. No one would ever go from 300 to 345. But you telling a kid who's got a 15 to even throw the 2.5s on, you've gone up 33%. And then you wonder why, some people say, he looks perfect with 15, and then he struggles at 20. Well, he increased the load by 33%. It's a lot of weight. Would be equivalent to, 33%. Hey, that 300-pound bench looks pretty good. Give 4 a whirl. Just toss another 100 on, see how that looks. You got buckled at 4, I don't get it. Did 3 so easy. It's only 33% more weight, right? You only had been up by a third. But we realize that if you lift it, if you're a lifter, you think 300, 305, right? Go up by, 1.5%, 82%. We don't have that capability. Minimally, we can't even get to 10% when you think about that. So just think about these little incremental bits of load are going to make really drastic changes in the way these kids live. So you want to be using the 1 1/4-pound plates, taking your time with kids. It's okay if kids, I don't care if kids, I really don't care if you keep doing the 15-pound bar the entire time this year. For the first session, he was in middle school, I could care less. Would not bother me one bit. If by the end that kid stamping up cleans and looking like he could lift and it was 15 pounds, I'd be like, perfect. That's what I want. And I know, like I said, for me, I've been doing it now with Mark and with Bia. And they really have gone up a lot. I mean, they're still in the 15, 20, 25. Mark was so fun. He said, can I try 45? I'd love to try 45. He smacked himself in the chin with one rep. He started crying. It's like, oh, there's you do this. Oh, hey, do you want to try 45? Nice job. But, my own kid, I can let him do that. But the point being, these, think of this in the big picture as it relates to that kid who's got a 15-pound bar in his hand versus thinking about it in your head. Like for you think, oh, what, 5 pounds, not a big deal. 5 pounds and a 15-pound bar. That's 2.5, it's not 5 pounds on each end, it's a 2.5 on each side. Increases that weight by 33%. That is 1/3 more load. So we've got to be, just take your time. Jumping is really interesting. I never thought we would actually have to teach somebody how to jump until I started watching the middle school kids and realized it's amazing how spazzy they can be. Just, okay, we're trying to do, 5 cleans and then 5 squat jumps. And, kids, you can jump by virtue of trunk extension. It is physically possible, and we have kids prove it every day. It's unbelievable. Like, you look at your kid, he's like, okay. And you're thinking, I can't even, but, how can they even think that up? But I would say that 1/3 to 1/2 of the kids that come in here actually, not even hip extension, trunk extension, they're actually using their lumbar erectors to try to generate force to get themselves off the ground. And they're generally doing that with their arms working against them going in the opposite direction. Which is a completely fascinating process of realizing how neurologically inefficient some people can actually be. It would be, if you couldn't, it would be really cool if you could sort of blur everybody's faces and kind of do some case studies like, wow, this is a case study in neurological inefficiency. Watch this kid try to jump. Watch what the sequence, the neurological sequence in his mind of how to move his center of gravity up in the air occurs. With, a really big trunk flexion, trunk extension component. Very, very little knee bend, very, very little hip bend. No arm action. So, I think you've got to look at that and figure out, and that's why I wrote down underneath this. Ask yourself, what doesn't look good? I think, and this is what I do every day. When I come in and I watch and I look and I think, what doesn't look good? Like, what doesn't look right? What doesn't end up being the way that it's supposed to? So, and that's why you come up, the straddle dumbbell. Well, what doesn't look good? That doesn't look good. So how do we fix that? Okay, if I put them against the bench here, now I've got the possibility that really what they've got to do is control one hip. And I can ask this kid to control one hip and move one arm. That becomes a simple task for them to be able to master versus asking them to control 2 hips and their trunk and then move their arm over. Because even though we might look at that and think, really simple single joint action, and except that we're saying it's really not a single joint action. We're asking them to stabilize the entire spine. We're asking them to stabilize both of their hips, and then we're asking them to move their arm. And then we would like to move their arm in some sort of sequential action that actually is beneficial for them. So it's not as simple. So, if So, and notice I did not fast forward that song. I don't like that song, but I left it alone. So, I didn't know I was like, get cold to do something. But so, now we did this because Karen had back surgery, so we did, and she would tend to be one of those who use a little bit of a trunk-oriented strategy. So we think, what doesn't look good? How do I, if I know that I've got somebody who had a lumbar discectomy and they tend to jump a little bit from their lumbar spine, what can I do to change that? Okay, I can put them in more extension, obviously. I can lock them into extension. And now force that person to use their hips to jump. I think this is what we should probably do with all of the middle school kids. We should just get a bunch of dolls over there, yeah. No, but I feel like it can't be worse than what we're seeing. What we're seeing in general, I would go so far as to say that 80% of the middle school kids don't jump with a sequential arm swing and from their hips. So I would think we got to go back to, and you may be right, we got to go back to something that's going to give us a higher chance of success. Yeah, or in some cases so close. Like I watch some kids who literally end up with it. It's just one of those. Yeah, I watch and I'm like, wow, it's amazing. It's just amazing to watch, like neurology, to watch and look and see, wow, this is what you would get if you didn't. Yeah, if you didn't co-technique, if you just said, okay, just go for it, do whatever. I mean, you end up with some really, really interesting choices of patterns. But it's a lot of it's sports selection. The hockey players, I couldn't, because the hockey players skate like this. So a lot of them will sequentially be able to get higher when they drive their arms back than when they drive their arms up. Anybody with like a running background, track background. When I first started seeing it, I'm like, what are you doing? And then I realized they couldn't coordinate forward arm swing because they don't do that. No, I didn't with the hockey kids. Like me, I stopped. I tried to, and that's one of the things that, sometimes you have to watch and think about, okay, why is this happening? And I started to realize, wow, almost all of these kids do the same thing. And they're actually jumping and they're getting high up in the air, but they would, in my mind, they're doing the opposite of what I want them to do. And I think sometimes this is why, we talk about this idea, relax, look around, make the call. You need to relax, you need to look around and go, what is that? And it's interesting, like sometimes, in the same way, like we'd be doing rotational rows. Now we're teaching rotational row as like a wide stance change direction thing. And suddenly I start teaching Division I hockey players, and they start doing this. Really close stance, really leaning away, and almost using their inside leg more. And it was Karen and I went over to BD, she's like, they're doing that wrong. And I was like, they're doing it different. I said, I have this wrong, and I want to figure out this actually wrong. Because, yeah, actually, I said, well, what makes it wrong? What makes it wrong is I know what right is, but right is based on a totally different thought than their right is. And after a while, something really good happened. I kind of stopped for a walk. Like the difference now we're in the opposite direction, it's really because real people that border on neurological disorder. And seriously, some of these middle school kids, when you look at it, some of them are incredibly inefficient. They can't skip, they can't conceptualize opposite arm and leg. Like there's a lot of patterns, you can talk about what kids miss, when they don't have gym class, when they don't. I was thinking, one of the big things is, boys should play with girls when they're little. Because you talk about hopscotch, they should have to play hopscotch, and they should have to hula hoop, and they should have to do a lot of things that, we would consider girly. But the girly stuff, is going to be way better for them in terms of learning to move, learning to tumble, learning to be coordinated, than specifically playing like, ball sports where they just try to hit something. And we end up with these kids who are really neurologically challenged. That's, we could go through the whole long thing. You realize that's why kids that play on a higher range of sports are better athletes, generally speaking. In the long run, because they develop a better set of skills. When you get some of these kids who just play hockey and they've just played 7 years old, then they will have these patterns where you look and think, that's what they do all the time. Middle school, yeah, Coach Locker. I think we want basic athleticism with the middle school kids. I think the difference is, if you've got a kid in your high school hockey group or your college hockey group and you realize that his arm swing is opposite, even the same way, like when I watch my hockey guys like warm up, when they warm up, they're like, and they do everything bow-leg. And I look at it and think, I really like them to be much more streamlined, much more track-like, and look like better runners. Except for the fact that none of them are probably ever going to run again, except here they run 300-yard shuttles. So it doesn't really matter. Probably not. When we've got kids in here, I want that kid to look like a track kid. If I've got a middle school kid, I want him to think, hey, I'm nice and bouncy, I'm stepping up over my knee, because I want athlete first, hockey player or whatever player, secondarily. And you'll see it the same way in the soccer kids. Because the soccer kids are used to being like this. they're gonna walk around external rotation all the time. The older they get, the longer they're like that, the more they'll do everything in external rotation. And they won't be able to get back to neutral, get back to normal. So, we've got to be thinking, that cutoff line is when you look at a kid, you think, okay, I've got a real athlete. I got a kid who's playing football, getting ready to go to college. I got a kid who's playing hockey at MC. I got a kid who's playing hockey at Austin. I've got a guy in the pro group. I've got a kid who's already in college for work. I think those people are very different. Almost everybody else we have here, right now at this point in time, falls into the other category. There's a handful probably girls here right now that are doing it. Some of the female athletes are doing it, I'd say. The rest of the vast majority of the others, probably all of the males, are at the developmental stage. So that would be, I think we want to get everybody locked in. If you need more dollars, let us know. We'll go and we'll figure out a way to, yeah. And I think, nobody should deadlift. Sumo deadlift, feet turned out, trap bar deadlift, straight ahead. They shouldn't turn. Because it's not the way the lift is done. Again, that kid's somehow managing to do that. Because that turnout, that external rotation for a lot of those kids is why they have groin problems. Because they put their groin, if you think about it, they shorten their external rotators, they shorten their posterior capsule, they put their groin on a stretch all the time. And that's why sometimes just stretching the hip rotators, not putting someone stretching the hip rotators, so many groin problems. The reason they have the groin problem is because that muscle's going to stretch the whole time. As soon as you take that away, generally speaking, pain goes away. So I would not, that I would take it on. Yeah, and that's what I said. I think once you've exhausted that kettlebell, and that's where I think, I think you go, so say, let me fix the word away. I wouldn't suitcase, no, and I think it's hard to do, but what I would do is this. All right, so, just watch here. So you can get to 120 that way, just by blocking that person up, and then, so it's really just our kettlebell sumo deadlift, but what happens is, eventually you run out of kettlebells. When you go to a bigger dumbbell than the heaviest kettlebell, you're this high off the ground, so you've got to elevate that back up off the ground. So does everybody understand what we're talking about? So it's just the same, you just plop that dumbbell in there. So, weight vest. If you have to. And then, I think if you get that, then you go to that one leg deadlift. Now you're going to be here, and you're going to go to that because again, sometimes you got to look at it and think, all right, this snatch is really, for that kid, it's a snatch grip deadlift, which is a totally different lift, of what's going on in your upper back when you've got this big, wide grip. It's too bad we almost should talk to them. Oh, really? We should look, or just think about, asking somebody to make us a smaller trap bar, because we really do have probably a need for a shrunken down trap bar. Well, you wonder if you look at it, if you took it over to the welding guy, you said, okay, cut 3 inches out of this thing, put a sleeve on it. Might be a little risky. But I think that's the stuff that we need. You need to think about it. You need to ask that question and say, okay, what am I going to do in that particular situation? I mean, it's not necessarily, going to sumo deadlift, if you said, okay, let's try it, let's see what it looks like. If it looks like that, go with it, start her out at 95 and see what it looks like. And see what happens, because that's certainly. So Steve and I had an interesting experience yesterday because he asked me about, can we fire a middle school client? And I said, yes, we can fire anybody. And he said, because this kid is a real consistent pain in the ass. He's got something to say all the time. He talks back all the time. He doesn't listen. And I said, really? And he said, his dad comes in the morning. So I just pulled him aside. I said, what's your dad going to say when I call him up and tell him you can't come anymore? Is he going to be happy? And he kind of looked at me. No. I said, well, how's he going to be when I tell him that you're a real pain in the ass, that you're a wise ass, that you talk back to everybody? I said, will that make him less happy? I said, okay, so now after today, I said, we're going to have no more of this, right? We're all done with you. I said, and I told him, I said, Steve has to be here all day. He doesn't really like spending an hour with you. I said, I want to stay there, right? It's honest. He doesn't. Right? But honest, he doesn't like spending an hour with you. He doesn't like having you in his group. I said, I'd rather have Steve here all day happy than you be here for an hour and a half making him unhappy. I said, so if I'm going to lose somebody, I'm going to lose you. I said, and when I lose you, I'm going to tell your father exactly why you're not here anymore, why we don't want you back. I said, how's that going to play at the house? If you didn't even answer, he was like, this guy taking his head like this is that's not going to be good. But you know what, I was never, I wasn't rude, I didn't raise my voice, I called him over, I was very quiet. Nobody probably but Steve and I know and him that we spoke. Yeah, I know, he's like, oh, talking to the boss. I know who the boss is, and I'm like, who's the boss? But the point being that, we don't need to put up with this. We have these kids, we do what they think. They're not benefiting, that's when you go back to the lower extreme ownership idea. You get, whether it's workers or clients that aren't fitting, that are detracting from what we're trying to do, then we may have to lose a couple of those people. And that's okay. But the better thing about it is that in a general sense, once you make that obvious to that person that, okay, this is it, we're going to send you home, they generally don't want to get sent home. All they're looking for is for somebody to tell them where the line is. If no one tells them where the line is, then they'll keep crossing it. And I think sometimes with the middle school kids, we definitely we're trying to be nice and not be too militaristic, which is what we want. We do want it to be fun, but we've got to figure out, okay, who are the kids that are taking advantage of that, and then who are the kids that are, sort of letting us enjoy our work. Because if you're going to be here all day, you don't want to see. I know, you don't want to look at that kid. Shit, he's here. I don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. So it's very easy. This isn't working out. And like I said, it's from the adult if we get to that point where we just can't. Where it's ruining your day to have to keep trying to correct someone who doesn't want to listen. The difficult conversation with that person. Obviously, we give everybody the benefit of the doubt, give them a chance, hey, but you explain the situation. You know, go someplace else. Ken brought up point two, same idea, shuttles, what are we going to do? We've got to be able to look and figure out, okay, can we run today? What group do I have? Can, if I've got, high school age kids, can I get them on the treadmill? Can we safely run treadmill tempos with kids running, 20 on, 40 off, or 15 on, 30 off, or something along that line, safely getting on the bike? Do we look around, if we do that, I've got to watch here where people can fall. I've got to explain in great detail how to get on and off the treadmill. I've got to ask them, have they ever gotten on and off a moving treadmill? We've talked about all before, this is all stuff we've got to do before we let somebody run. And then the other thing that I would do is, I become more of a fan of raising the incline as opposed to raising the speed. Because if you raise the incline really high, if you say, okay, we're going to run it, 15, 30s at 8 miles an hour the first time around, at 2% grade, and then, you know, all right, it's easy, okay, we'll go to 5% grade. It'll get hard really fast, trust me. We won't have to be up in the 9s and 10s and 11s and 12s with people in worrying, okay, is this person gonna get flung off? Next week, they'll be able to get on and off a lot easier, so we may be better served by trying to think about some protocols that are a little more incline related and a little less speed related. Yeah, no, I think we should. I think we should figure out what are we like. We've got to look at the lab. You know, we talked about the idea of doing whether it's 60-yard shuttles done on a 15-yard course, whether it's if you've got enough, even 30-yard shuttles, 15 up, 15 back, because this goes back, and I got to figure out. I'm gonna bring up the threads on. Because in some ways, when we look at this, we have to realize that we're going to have to make some decisions that may not be scientific. But also realize that there's going to come times where we are going to lose that space. So you've got to know softball people. Well, the other thing, I'd probably take that one step further, and just say, okay, let's, why don't we just get those out of here? Because some of those med balls I would look at and think, I don't know why they're here, and I hate to just throw really expensive med balls in the dumpster, because at some point we may look at this and think, we may decide that, overhead scoop throws are a really good idea, although I don't think so, and we may need these heavy ones, but it might be worth saying, okay, everything beyond the 10, just take it out, open the closet, put it all up there. If we need it, we'll go get it. Don't put it up here in the loft that we just spent a lot of time cleaning out. Take them and put them neatly in the closet, probably underneath the bottom shelf, where they're out of the way, and then that way they're gone. We don't have to worry about it. So you don't have that problem with the kid grabbing the wrong one. Now that's probably me just being lazy, because I thought about that a long time ago. so when we're thinking about conditions, I think what happens, like, if Robbie did a good job, this is, like I said, one of the things that we've got to probably, everybody's got to get a better handle on, but, you know, tempo, he said I've covered the uniform tempo running thread, I mean, you know, tempos, whatever, stride walk, that's pretty easy. You know, we start thinking about alactic power, maximal jumps, sprints, hops, bounds, throws, explosive work. Covered, we got that taken care of. Alactic capacity, sprints, jumps, bounds, throws, right? You know, 3 to 15 seconds work, 1 to 3 to 6 work, rest ratio, 1 to 6 works rest ratio, we probably got that covered. But here he gives, you know, an example of an alactic capacity running workout. 2 sets a day to 30 meters, or 2 sets a day, 15 meter out, 15 meter back. You know, that may be a reasonable compromise. It's not probably where we'd like to go, because if we looked at, I think, did we go further down here? If we want to get into things that are probably a little bit more intense than that, but we're going to start looking at it right now. If you can easily block off, particularly with that 15 up and back is a better way to do it, and get that repeat 30. And like he said, you know, you're talking about 1 to 5, 1 to 6. Generally speaking, you can probably be very safe at 1 to 4, and have your groups split into 4 groups or 5 groups. I mean, 4 groups is going to give you 1 to 3. 15 up and back, next group goes up and back, next group goes up and back. I mean, that's an easy way to do it. To get one direction change, you only need 20 yards of space, because you only need, you know, you can mark it out 15 to the end line up here, and then you just need enough room to finish back through. So that's probably something that, from what we have to work with right now, is going to work the best in my mind. And so, like he said here, maybe 2 to 4 sets, 8 to 12 reps. We say 1 to 5, but 1 to 5 would seem probably long for these kids. But again, if you want to make it more tilting it towards the aerobic side, you simply strengthen the glutes. So if you take that 15 up and 3, now you're going to be in that, you know, I don't know, 15 up and back to 30 yards is probably going to take, give or take, 5 seconds, you know, for and change with the direction change. Again, not ideal, but we won't have a ton of direction change going on with kids maybe who aren't ready for direction change, but we will be able to do something relatively intense. I just want to see anything else I'm missing before I look. Oh yeah, just this quick kind of breathing video. Just because it's really good. I haven't looked at the book itself. I'm reading Urban Meyer's book right now, which is freaking outstanding in terms of, I mean, really, really good. But just watch, look at this. Inhale. And look at what's going on. So you can see the heart beating, obviously. See that big inhale, watch, boom. Everything's getting expanded out, pushed down. It's pretty cool to actually see. I have no idea how they managed to do this, but it's pretty interesting. You can kind of see that like central tendon and stuff. When you really get to that big deep breath at the bottom, you can see that attachment of the diaphragm. Let's see if you can see it right there, like where it kind of sticks down through. So actually, I'll put the cursor right there. So look right here. Watch me get this big inhale again. Pretty cool to see what's actually happening and how much your internal organs are actually moving around in this whole process. I don't know how long this goes on. Yeah, this was in Michael Mullen. Somebody had it on Twitter, and then Michael Mullen had it on his Facebook. And it's, oh, is he coming to that? also, what we can do is do the practical during halftime. We can have lunch during the first half, and practical during the halftime. Oh, I thought it was 20. Oh, okay, someone said 125 first. Oh, okay, yeah. So I think that the seminar should go from 8 to 4:20. Yeah, half hour, and maybe take show of hands, anybody who wants to stay, can stay with someone who doesn't like football, and they'll spend an extra hour with them. But like, this is pretty cool, but to show you sort of the level of asymmetry, we talk about how asymmetrical we actually are. When you actually look at that picture, you think, wow. You look at the diagram, the height on one side versus the lack of height on the other, and the space and the heart's taken off, and then you realize that, the liver's smashed in this something. So.
And 3 by 0.3 on the bike after that. That's it. Whew. That's it. Phase 3, day 3. Ouch.